Good morning. Good morning. You're on mute. You're on mute still. But good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the second webinar Our Wellbeing LLC is presenting. And I want to say, hope we all are thinking about or doing something in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Not just taking off from work, not just shopping and taking advantage of the sales, but actually doing something for our families, doing something for our communities. And I know that our webinar today is going to shine light on a subject that is very much a part of our communities and everyone's communities with our guest author today. Our topic today is incarceration and well-being healing. And we have with us a dynamic author that you all will get to know her story. You will hear from our newly named Uncut Crew afterwards. We have our people, our well-being strategic partners. We've named ourselves the Uncut Crew because we are, and one of us did that among us, because we are uncut, unfiltered, and providing a professional perspective on well-being topics. Some of us are practitioners, some of us are advocates, but we all are near and dear to our hearts with well-being and making sure that we all have healthy, positive well-being. And if we don't, how do we get there? So with that, today we're going to be interviewing author Lalita Yeldell-Sylvers. She is the publisher of a book called Circumcision of a Wounded Heart, An Unjust Journey Due to Systematic Racism, Classism, and Oppression. Lalita has a master's degree in social work. She has worked with multiple populations, including adult and children with mental illness and disabilities. And in addition, she has worked with the homeless population and other groups that are socially marginalized. Lalita's future goals include starting a nonprofit organization. Her objective is to use her knowledge, background, and skills to advocate and problem solve to create sustainable futures for risk, youth, and offenders who have been incarcerated, focusing on mental illness and self-sufficiency. And with that, I say good morning, Lalita. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. I am doing well. And yourself?
Doing well, doing well. So as we had talked about, we're going to just get right into some of the things that I think that our viewing audience and also our Uncut Crew would like to hear from you about. So can you please describe details of what Circumcision of a Wounded Heart is about?
Circumcision of a Wounded Heart. It's my life story. After being involved in a head-on collision and being sent to prison for crimes I did not commit. Basically, the story details my experience with the judicial system, the prison system, and society as a result of being involved in a head-on collision.
Wow. When did that collision happen?
In 2004, April of 2004.
April 2004. And I know that we had talked a little bit about the circumstances around it, but can you go into just some detail to let our audience know, how did you go from a head-on collision to facing 47 years in prison, being exonerated, being reconvicted, and then having to spend almost 3 years? That's a story.
Well, first of all, I have not been exonerated as yet. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, for something that has happened so long ago, you wouldn't think that it would still be impacting your life now. And it's almost 20 years ago. And so it has been a nightmare. It started off that way, and things has gotten better as time has progressed. I never thought that my life would be, or I would have experienced the things that I did go through. But to be honest with you, like telling you from point A to point B, how things got to where they were, it all happened so quickly. Myself, as well as family, friends, and others, we never thought it would have gotten to the degree or go as far as it did. It's almost like you waking up one day and everything is fine, and then you wake up to a nightmare. And this is how my life has been. Just waking up in the hospital, because I was in the hospital. I was in a coma for almost 3 weeks, well, a month, almost a month. But I was in a coma 3 weeks, 1 week shy of a month. And so without memory or anything else. So in terms of the accident, I don't even remember details of what took place. And so when you can't remember anything and you just wake up and all of these things are happening, I'm not really sure in terms of how that makes you feel, because you can't even believe what's being told to you, that has even taken place. I'll say that. And so it's been a very difficult process in trying to navigate and get through things, especially when there is so much hurt, pain, confusion, not understanding. And then after going through trial and hearing details, it just bitterness, anger, everything that you can think of, because you don't understand how you've gotten to a point in life where you currently are.
Right. At the time, how old were you when this happened?
Oh my God.
I don't mean to put your age out there, but
well, this is 20 years ago, and I'm about to turn 44. So,
all right.
Yeah.
That's okay. I asked that because and I figured it was younger years for you versus having to deal with something in your age now. Because we don't have life coping skills at 24 years old. We're just beginning to understand life, wet behind the ears. And for you having to go through all of this at that time, I know that you had to depend on family support to get you through this. Who were some of the key family members that were there for you? And you had children also, the young children, correct?
Yeah, I had a daughter, my daughter, Mahogany.
Okay.
My mother and my grandmother, my biggest supporters, my uncle and my sisters, so it's mainly, our family is small, but we're close, and I also had friends as well, that were there and supportive also. And so without them and their support, like, I don't know how I would have been able to make it through.
When we had talked before, you had said that it took a toll on your mother particularly. You had also said that she was your rock through all of this. What would you say to other people who have family members going through something similar, and any advice for their family members?
I mean, I would just say, just try to be there and support as much as you can, because when people are going through things, everyone needs support. But in a situation like this, you really need support. And if you don't have the support that is needed, it won't help you get to point A to point B. I think that the reason that I am who I am today and where I am mentally is because of the support system I did have. And me having you having family, people that love, care about you, that gives you, it allows you to move forward. It pushes you not to give up hope, and to know that you can look forward to a better day because you have these people there for you, rooting for you, pushing for you. And that's going to help you get through everything that you're going through every step of the way. And that's pretty much that has been my experience, because if I didn't have support, I don't know where I would be today.
Right. So, because a lot of times we will hear, especially in the Black community, people say, well, my parents said if I ever went to jail, you on your own because I didn't raise you that way. But in a lot of instances, it may not even be that person's fault of how they end up in the system.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
No,
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that so many people just automatically trust in the system. And I learned that the hard way myself, because even when I was charged, I just thought that, okay, well, I didn't do this. This is going to be a done deal, and it was just going to be done and over. But to actually have to go through the hell that I went through, it really shows you uh, the type of system that we're dealing with. And it's not one that works for people that looks like us. And that's just the reality of it. And so it is definitely a wake-up call, in terms of being able to do things. I mean, I've read articles where people that look like me and in terms of the punishment or different things that happens to us, it never happens to people that do not look like us. And some of them won't even receive any prison time, or even go through half of the things that we have to go through, or that we face. And so it does make you feel some type of way, because, you want to believe that life is fair and that, things are going to work out the way that, we've been told, like, okay, you do what you're supposed to do, you be a good person, and life will work out. No, that is not the way that life works. And so being able to accept reality for what it really is versus what you've been told, that's just a whole nother ball game.
And you had touched upon how things are supposed to be fair. We do the right things. I know that you had experienced what you thought would be fair treatment, but it didn't come, and it didn't come from people who look like us, who were a part of your case. Can you describe a little bit more about how you felt about that and the lack of, I won't say because I wasn't there, but
Yeah.
I know what we talked about. Um, just describe how you felt to see people in positions that looked like you, that held your life in the balance of their hands, and you felt that maybe they didn't care.
Well, to be honest with you, Lisa, I've received the worst treatment from our people.
I wasn't gonna go there, but you
and,
went through
and
the door.
yeah, and
Go ahead.
it's so disheartening, because you would think that, because they look just like you, they may understand a little bit more, because they could be subjected to the same things that you've actually gone through or that you went through, but they've treated me worse than people that don't look like us, and I mean, it's just unreal. I can't even begin to describe to you, or explain to you, like, the hurt and the pain, because it's almost like, you have the other ones treat you bad, and I mean, the expectation of that, okay, I can deal with that, but your brothers and your sisters, you expect something a little bit differently, and that has not been my experience.
Right. When you were incarcerated in Virginia, and you said it was in Fluvanna
Yes.
Correctional Center.
Yes.
Can you describe, to the best of your ability, and if you don't feel comfortable, please don't, the treatment you received while being incarcerated and the perceptions of treatment and of treatment when people are incarcerated and how you were treated when you were in there?
Being incarcerated is, I mean, in terms of being able to describe, what it feels like, is, I'm not even going to say that there is a feeling, because you feel subhuman. You're treated inhumane, you're treated cruel, everything that you do, you're told to do, when to eat, when to sleep, when to go to bed, um, I think it's like very degrading, like the strip searches, they will search you, and when you're in your menstrual cycle, you have to drop pads and you have to take out tampons in front of somebody. Like, I mean, things that you would never even think that you would have to do. You going to the restroom. I've had roommates. You pee on yourself. You might even poop on yourself because of not being let out to go to the bathroom. And they did punish inmates that way. And so the things that you would normally be able to do when you're free, like you can't do any of that. You know what I'm saying? People fighting, things happening, like really being incarcerated. Being able to go home, that's a blessing in itself, because when you're in a situation like that, you don't know if you're going to return home, because of the environment that you're in. And so it weighs heavily on you mentally, because you have to, in terms of surviving, you're not the same person. You're altered, because of now you have to go into survival mode. What works, especially if you've never been in a situation like that before. So now you have to figure it out.
Right.
I mean, it's hard.
And circling back to how you were incarcerated and why, I know we had discussed that the Commonwealth wanted you to take a plea deal, which is typical. We find, with a lot of people, they want to want them to plea out, and then the case goes away. Can you describe a little bit about how your situation was with that plea deal and how you were adamant that you were not going to take that because you knew your innocence?
Yeah, well, it made me upset because, when my attorney came to me and said that, the Commonwealth told her that if I took a plea deal that, they could possibly make it so I wouldn't have to do any time. And I'm just like, if someone is facing 40 some years and you feel like they did all of what you said they did, then why would you make it so that they're able to go free and, not do any time? And so it made me very angry, and so although my mom, family, friends, they wanted me to take the deal because the only thing they were concerned about was my freedom. But for me, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, because you're not going to force me into something when I know I didn't do anything wrong. And so that made me feel some kind of way. But these are the things that are done daily. And I've read about it, people taking a plea just to be able to, lessen their time, whether they're innocent or not, and especially if you don't have a good attorney or someone representing you, which, some people are receive court appointed or whatever the case may be, you don't really have a chance, at fighting this system, because the system, to me, is already set up for us to lose anyway.
True. And then your plea deal, you said that the Commonwealth wanted you to take it, and then they were talking about trying to get you no time. So why would they want to even have you take a plea deal?
Yeah.
If you're innocent.
Yeah.
So it's contradictory right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another Black person life that we have messed up, because I just believe that the system is designed for us to fail.
Right. And while you were in prison, your spirituality became even more undergirded with your experience there. Can you talk a little bit about what your conversations were like, and how they, with God, and how they just shaped your book also, because you started writing your book while you were in there?
Yes, when I first got locked up, I was so mad. I was bitter, I was angry, I was broken. And so I would have these conversations with God, because I'm like, I mean, I know you're not going to allow this. Like, what are you doing? And so I was pissed off, mad, but I started reading the Bible a lot. I would go to a Bible study and stuff like that. And it's like the things that I would say, it's almost like God would respond back to me, through other means. Like it may be somebody that go to Bible study and they bring a poem back and we're like, oh, this is for you. And it will be an answer. That now something that I've said to God or I'm praying about. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so that happened throughout my incarceration all the time through people. I would sit and I would write by myself. People just would come and talk to me about their whole life. Multiple times I woke up out of my sleep, probably 2 a.m, like things that come to me, and I will write about it or I will write it down because I will constantly have conversations with God all the time. And he always revealed himself to me in different ways. And I knew that it was him, and he was giving me the strength to push through and move forward. I mean, I just could feel his presence. And I know that that's what kept me, while I was there, and it helped me get through the time while I was there.
And during our conversation, I know that you said you felt like you had that hedge of protection around you.
Yes.
You were while you were incarcerated, which a lot of people may not think that would happen in prison, but your experience, personal experience, you had that hedge around you that you felt that kept you away from a lot of things that maybe would have happened to others in prison.
I knew it had to be God because of the things that was done to me. Like I had a counselor, like he was racist. He hated me. And so anything that he could do to try to get next to me, he forced me to take classes like that I didn't need to take. He put on there, I told him my education. He said, that's not my education. Like anything that he could do to hurt me, he did. And so he took my good time away from me, and he changed my security level. So he changed my security level for me to be moved to population. But I was in population with people with more heinous crimes. Like, in the pod that I was in, there were people that were there that, were lifers, and so this is where I was housed at. This is where they switched me to. Well, so happened, like I got along with everybody. Like, I stayed to myself, but no one bothered me, because a lot of people hang out in cliques, whether, like all these women did, whatever the case may be. It's just a lot going on, but they hang out in cliques. And I used to be to myself and by myself all the time. And I think that they thought that something was probably wrong with me because this is not something that they do there, but I didn't have issues. People talk to me, I talked to other people, and I got along with people fine, but I know that was God's hedge of protection because of what the enemy was trying to do to me. So everything that was done to hurt me, God made it so that I was okay. And I know that, and I felt his presence there.
Wow. Wow. When did you release your book?
Well, I actually released my book twice. Okay. Well, in 2017, my book, it came out under a pseudonym. It was Circumcision of a Wounded Heart, The Untold Truth. Well, I did it under pseudonym because of the treatment and the things I had gone through with society. And so I'm like, I knew I needed to publish my story, but I'm like, I'm just not going to use my name. Okay. And so the goal was for me to do 2 parts, to publish it in 2 parts. And, after talking with God, is like, no, you're not supposed to do that. He's like, the book needs to be published in your name, and you need to tell your story, so you can be of help to other people. It's just like he was just working through me. And the title needs to be changed according to what you truly feel. Because see, I had talked to people in reference to the title of the book now, and, like, no, I don't know about that. That might be a bit much, to do that. And God was like, I got this. You don't worry about nobody else. You need to do what I told you to do. And so I changed the title of the book and I released it again. And when I did release it the second time, it was with my information, my name, and the title that I felt resonated better with my experience.
Wow, that's powerful. So you followed your assignment that God gave you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How can you give us the website that people can go and purchase your book, listen to the audio version of it, to
Yes.
reach you and all, so that if anybody wants to follow up directly with you, and just learn your story. You got a powerful story to tell that should be told, and I know that at some point you will be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
given your circumstances. But
Mm-hmm.
please share with our audience how they can reach out and get in contact with you.
My website is Yeldell-Sylvers .com, and that is L as in Larry, Y as in yellow, E is in Edward, L as in Larry, D is in David, E is in Edward, L as in Larry, L as in Larry, S is in Sam, Y is in yellow, L is in Larry, V is in Victor, E is in Edward, R is in Ramsey, S is in Sam.com, Yeldell-Sylvers.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I am going to bring up, I'm looking for a copy of your book so I can show everybody. I had it here, just one moment, one moment. Okay, there we go. That is a copy of the cover of the book, Circumcision of a Wounded Heart, An Unjust Journey, Systematic Racism, Classism, and Oppression. Powerful story. So I hope our audience will go out there, check out Lalita's website, listen to her book, purchase her book. Let's put some money in her pocket because she has a story to tell and she needs that those funds to be able to tell that, continue to tell that story. We need to support our Black businesses also, small businesses. We need to do that. Everything that Martin Luther King Jr. fought for on this day, we want to encourage people to do. And all of our other community and cultural prophets, I'll say out here, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, all of those who are looking for to help better us and help us become self-sufficient. So Lalita, if you just stand by, we're going to open up with our Uncut Crew, and we have some more questions for you.
Okay.
You can ask things yourself also.
Mm-hmm.
We also have joining us our other member, our Uncut Crew, Kaleema Overton Ameen.
Hello.
Good morning, Kaleema. How are you? And Kaleema is, if you remember our last webinar, Kaleema was featured on there, and her book is titled Hidden in Plain Sight. So she is now a part of our ongoing Uncut Crew to come back with our guest authors and guest speakers. So everybody can unmute themselves, and we're just going to do our round robin for the next 25 minutes or so. And again, we have with us Tiffany James. Tiffany is the owner and a licensed professional counselor with Benay's Creative Counseling. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And we have Erica Riley. Erica is the owner of A New Creation LLC. And Erica also has a master's in social work, and she is here from our spiritual well-being point of view. Good morning, Erica.
Grand Rising, everyone.
So you all heard the story that Lalita has told, and I want to just reach out to you for any questions that you all may have of her. Feel free to jump in after the question is asked, everybody, and we're just going to have this intimate conversation for about the next 20 minutes. So who wants to kick it off?
Well, I'd like to start this party of questioning. First and foremost, again, thank you so much for sharing your story, your testimony, and your life with us. It's very empowering. I did have the opportunity to listen to your audiobook. It took me through so many different emotions, from anger to sadness to confusion, to so many different things. It is a great read for every professional. It should be an understudy for those who are in college. I think it's great for those to see and to hear your story to make change in the community. We see where the deficits are, and this is a great read, not only for professionals, but for those who have had similar experiences. And it shows what you went through, what your family went through, and the different emotions and dynamics that comes into a full circle. So I thank you for sharing that with us. In your book, some of the things that stood out to me was some of the barriers and the struggles that you had when you re-entered back into the community, and some of the supports that were lacking for you. And so I'm curious about the felony disenchantment, and also about the restoration rights that we have. And some of those things, for you all who don't know, these are systems that are put in place, quote unquote, to support and help those who have been incarcerated. And I say quote unquote because we know that those things, like you spoke about earlier, systemic issues, they are still here. And it's not set up to support and help everyone. So I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the barriers that you had when trying to acclimate back into the community, getting support, just being labeled, and with the stigmas that come with your experience. And how was that for you?
It was very difficult. It was very difficult. And then finding out things that you're not even aware of, because I'm thinking like, okay, you know, come home, get my life back on track. You know, I got back into college, finished my degree, you know, finishing school, everything, and only to later find out that I'm not able to move forward. Which I would have never known if I didn't talk to a sister. She called me like I had applied for jobs. I've gotten multiple offers, received the letter, you know, and then they all were rescinded. Well, the only thing that was being told to me is that, you know, me having something on my background. Now, one lady called me that looks like us, and she said, "Lalita, do you know you have a burial crime conviction?" And I'm like, "What is that?" You know, and she said, "Listen, I'm going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to send you some information." That was the first time that I ever knew that I had a burial crime, or what it was. And so there is a very long list for burial crime convictions. And so I know that there are so many people that probably have them that don't even realize that they have them. And so when going to apply for a job, you know, you may be just denied, not even knowing why you're denied. So the system has things set in place to hold you back, but it's more so like they're trying to make it seem like they're helping you. So they have to put certain things in place, you know. But how would you know that you have a burial crime conviction if no one tells you? You know, and so for me, I can understand, like, when you talk about people, you know, recidivism and like going back to prison. If you constantly, if you get out of prison and you're trying to live life and you're trying to do things differently, and the door is being shut in your face every which way, most people are going to do what they know. So whether that is selling drugs, whether that is robbing, stealing, whatever the case may be, they know they have to survive. You know, and so when your survival skills kick in, you're going to do what you need to do to feed you and your family. You know, and so it puts people in a situation where, okay, they're going to go back, you know, and then they write about statistics and make it seem like, oh, no, this is what it is. You know, everybody wants to come back to prison. No, that's not the case. I truly believe that there are some people that will go back because they are just not going to get themselves together. But I do believe that there are also people that want to start over and, you know, do things the right way, but there is no know-how. And then you have a system that is blocking you from being able to do so.
Which takes me to my question to you, Lalita. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Spiritually connecting with God and His presence. When you're going through so much trauma and you're going through things that you have no idea what's going on, why it's happening to you, it was an accident. And accidents are just that. They're accidents. They're not something that you're supposed to be convicted of in a sense. And then you go to prison and you're going through all of this that you just feel like, I heard you say you were angry with God, which I'm sure a lot of us can experience that or have experienced that and can identify that with you. How did you manage to continue to reconnect spiritually when so much was happening to you physically and mentally?
Because God was continuously giving me signs. See, although I was mad, I was still paying attention. And the things that were happening around me, and to me, like I was mad, but he was still making sure I was okay while I was angry. He was answering me through other people and things that were happening while I was pissed off. And so it let me know, like, okay, he's still here, and so I started to look at things in a different way, like, okay, everything happens for a reason, regardless of whether we want to believe it or not, or whether we want to go through what it is that we may have to experience. And so trying to look at the bigger picture, I later said to myself, this is not about me. And I had to think about all of the things that happened, all of the people that came and told me their life stories, how God had protected me. And I'm like, God is using me for another purpose. Like, I don't even believe me writing my book was for me. I think that I had to experience all these things. Like, he even told me in my poem, like, that I wrote, that, he didn't do these things to hurt me. He did these because he knew I had the strength and endurance to get through it. And so I do believe that God will use his children sometimes, especially if he feels that you're strong enough to get through something, in order for him to get results, for someone else or in any given situation. And so I believe that that's what has happened. I mean, I explained to Lisa when I first talked to her, I'm like, oh, Lisa, I don't like to talk, and so I'm like, but God, he has a personality, because like, oh yeah, this is a sense of humor. I'm going to make you do what you don't want to do, and so, I feel like a lot of what, I had to experience is to help those that will come behind me.
You had also talked about getting involved in the community, and what you would like to do with that. Can you expound on that a little bit more, what your visions are about being out in the community and bringing your experience and helping others?
Yeah, I did volunteer. I was an ambassador with the city of Richmond for some time, and working with the community. But that stopped when COVID happened. And now that, I'm a caregiver for my grandmother, a lot of things like I can't do as much as I would like to do right now. But, I just think in terms of being able to get out in the community, in terms of giving people information about what is going on, and to make a difference,
right?
To make a difference in the community, and also to get the word out, to give people hope, and also for people to be able to see differently, because sometimes when people know your story, they can look at it and say, okay, well, I know this happened. I might want to look at this a little bit differently. I mean, because just like me, myself, before all of this stuff happened to me, like, I wouldn't want to be sitting on the jury. I'm like, oh, I got a nail appointment today. Like, I ain't got time for this. But when life hits you and things happen, you're like, okay, you start to look at things very different. So the way I view life now, based on my experience, it's very different than what it was a long time ago.
Right.
I want to first congratulate you, on writing your book. It's definitely it's a journey, I know, and on top of the journey that you had previous to that, of course. And thank you for sharing your story so others can, find a path and find healing and restoration. Unfortunately, and I guess like most, African Americans, in America, unfortunately, I know multiple people who have been wrongfully convicted or excessively convicted. And I feel like I shouldn't know that many people, me individually. you know, so that lets you know that something is wrong and broken, definitely in the system. I do want to congratulate you again also for having the resilience, which, you know, is just restoring your life to where it was. But then you also had that post-traumatic growth, which is rare in people, where they take their trauma and use it to help and educate and help other people restore their lives. And you've definitely embodied that and you've done that. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you know, how you were able to elevate yourself, being in a place where you knew you weren't supposed to be, and how you kept that faith? You talked about being angry with God, but he was still there with you. Can you talk a little bit more about, you know, what was going on inwardly and how you were able to maintain your strength and your courage?
Well, for me, the whole time I was incarcerated, I read the Bible a lot. I went to Bible study all the time. And so I think like studying the word also allowed me to have that connection, that continuous connection with him. And with me having that continuous connection, I think that that's what allowed me to be able to overcome and deal with the things that I was going through. Because I really didn't want to be angry. I really didn't want to be mad, but I mean, the human side of you, you know, when you're going through things that you don't understand, and you're experiencing things that you've never gone through, you know, it's going to make you feel some kind of way. But I also knew that God was protecting me and he was making sure that I was okay. And so I needed to look at things a little bit differently and like, okay, this is what's going on. You know, this is what's going on, and you have to use it to your benefit to do whatever it is God is trying to show you, you know, and that's what kept me going.
Also, I hear a lot of spiritual, which is definitely what we need. And any point of your struggle, during your traumatic events that you had to go through, did you ever seek out any mental health? Did you ever feel like you were at a place where you couldn't actually reach out to God? Because, you know, sometimes you just don't know what to say because you don't have it there. And, you know, people always say, go to God. If you're going through something, go to God. You know, oh, just pray about it. But sometimes when we're going through something so traumatic, we don't even have the words to go to God. We don't even have that prayer to go to God. So,
but I find that you don't need to sometimes say anything. I believe God knows. You know, I could sit in silence and close my eyes, and God already knows what I'm feeling. And, you know, something can come over me to make me feel better. When I've talked to God or say he's been there, it's not always like, it's not words necessarily, you know, it's the feeling of him being present, you know, you just know that he knows, you know, and so I just, when I can feel that and know that he's there, or something that someone has said to me or something that happens to let me know that he's there, you know, I'm just like, okay, he's here. You know, I find like, I don't really go and talk to people about stuff because what can they do? You know, another thing is this, I think that it's good to talk to people, but you have to make sure you're talking to the right people. And consulting with God first is the first thing that you need to do. Sometimes you can talk to people and they can talk you out of what God has for you, you know, and so that's why it's so very important to go to him first, because he's going to lead and guide you and show you exactly what he wants you to do. And it may not be right then when you want him to, but eventually he will. Whether you get a sign, something happens, it's going to be something that's going to say, okay, I think that this is what I need to do.
Right. And would you agree that as an MSW also that there are, I heard you say you can't go to everybody, and that's very true. Would you also say that there are professionals out there that you may want to talk to, that, you know, when you're going through as well?
Absolutely. I've been to 3 counselors. I mean, I've been to therapy 3 times. It's just they probably weren't the therapists I should have been to, you know, because I pay attention to details, and because, you know, of me knowing things like, you know, I've had therapists have biases and everything. Like when you have biases, you can't help someone effectively, you know. And so I just have not encountered a person that I'm willing to, you know, talk to because of my experience, you know, and because I am very big on having someone that looks like me, because I'm not going to someone that doesn't look like me, because you haven't experienced anything, or probably will ever experience anything that I've gone through. And so I don't want to talk to you, you know. And so eventually I feel like God is going to work that out as well.
Earlier you had talked about, with when Erica asked you about rights restoration, what was, and you know, we're hearing a lot about restoration of rights of people who have been convicted of felonies, but what were some of the rights that you were able to get restored here in Virginia, and what was the process that you had to go through?
Well, I was able to get my voting rights restored, and I think that I had them restored probably, it wasn't that long after I returned when I got home. But in order for me to, like my firearms, to be able to carry a weapon, you have to petition the court in order for you to get your firearms back. And then they set a court date and everything. And you have to go before the judge. And so that's the process. And so that's what I had to do. And even after that was just recently, I'll say I had that restored within the last year or two.
Can you explain a little bit about your experience? Because I think the audience will want to hear it. It's a testimony of that hedge of protection and being elevated.
Yeah, I mean, when me and my husband got in the courtroom, we're waiting, and like 6 people went before me. Now, one guy I remember like yesterday, like I think he was in addiction or something like that, and he was trying to get, you know, his gun rights restored. And, you know, he had been working in the community, you know, doing very positive things. And his conviction 20 years ago, the judge denied him, told him to come back and see him in a year. Other people, it was less time than that, but he denied everyone. And so by the time I get up there, like I can't even barely stand up to go before him, because I'm like, oh, this is just done. Because I mean, I just knew, like, you know, he denied all of these people, so he's going to deny me too. And so when I walked up, you know, and he's like, that tell me, you know, why do you feel like, you know, that you should receive your rights back, you know. And I was stuttering because I was stumbling over my words and everything, because I'm like, okay, he's going to deny me. And I'm like really, really nervous. And then you have the Commonwealth saying, well, she has a burial crime conviction and we don't think that she needs to get this and this, that. And so mentally, my mind is all over the place. Well, I didn't even have to finish saying anything. The judge said, Lalita, after looking at everything that you have done from the time you came home, there is no way I can deny you, you know. And, you know, he gave me rights back, but I mean, I wasn't expecting that, you know, but he did look like us, you know, but I wasn't expecting that because he had denied so many other people, you know, that look like us. So, yeah.
Wow. Do you know anything about being able to get a passport if you've had a conviction, and do you have to get that restored as a right? So if I ask, because with the well-being, we do retreats, but we're also doing international well-being retreats. And the focuses, along with our partner organization, Lalita LLC, whose main goal is to take people from here that look like us and connect them to the continent. reconnect them back home to the motherland. But we don't want to leave out any population. We want to make sure that our returning citizens are able to go, because that may be a part of their well-being, just like a healing, just like everybody else. So do you lose that right to get a passport, or can you get a passport after being convicted?
To be honest with you, Lisa, that's not something that I have looked into, so I'm not aware. I don't know. Yeah.
We'll have to explore that a little more. And if anybody out here in our audience knows that answer, feel free to drop it in the chat. Also, if you can drop in the chat where you're viewing from today, your city and state, we always want to know where we are touching. We are recording this webinar, so it'll be on the Our Wellbeing LLC YouTube channel as well, if you missed part of it, or if you want to let people know where they can go view it. So with that, if we can all just, wrap it up, if there's anything you want to say, we will move into Q&A. If we have anybody out there that has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat as well. So let's start with Kaleema.
Well, once again, I do want to thank you for your bravery, for sharing your story, because I know that it's extremely hard, especially while you're still processing and going through and healing. And I just want to commend you even for trying so many times to find the right fit for the therapist, and there has to be a right fit. I've gone to therapy even before my event that caused me to write a book, after, but if you don't have a therapist that is in line with you mentally, spiritually, culturally, then it does interrupt the therapeutic process. I just want to encourage you to keep looking for that right fit, and you'll know it, of course, when you find it. And just thank you so much for your bravery and your courage.
Thank you all for having me.
You're welcome. Erica?
Yes, again, I just want to thank you for sharing your story and just, being so resilient in everything that you've been through. And to be able to articulate some of the things that you said, that is an eye opener for our community to make change. We all have a voice. We all vote on such things that we are not knowledgeable of, that can hold us back even further. And so I would encourage, when someone is hearing this story, to think about change. What can we do differently? What can we do to support? What can we do to help? And you have been a start of that campaign with your story, and so I thank you for that. And the little advocate in me is just running in my head, trying to figure out, who do I go to first in my community, to speak about such matters. And it should move you to that point. And hearing your story, it should move everyone to that point, to do better, make change, and to stand up for things that we know that is not equally defined for all. So again, I thank you.
Thank you.
Tiffany?
Lalita, you have been a true blessing to me. And so I want to thank you for sharing not just your story, but I want to thank you for sharing your faith. I want you to know that it has been a true blessing to me. As Kaleema said, you will find that good fit therapist. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a therapist, because I go to therapy as well. I always tell people that everyone needs a therapist. And it's not that God can't do everything and all things, because he can. But God, just like he puts doctors and gives them the talents and gives them the knowledge and the schooling to do what they do, he also gives therapists the same. And it is important, just like you want to go to a good doctor, if it's a good fit for you, you want to go to a good therapist that's a good fit for you as well. So I don't want you to give up on that as well. I know in your community you have a lot of friends that you may not be, of course, not able to go to, but they're good therapists. So just keep that in mind. I don't want you just to give up on that piece, because there is someone out there. But thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing how much faith you had in such a dark place. So appreciate you today.
Thank you.
And Lalita, any parting words you want to leave us with?
I would just say that, no matter how hard things get, never give up. You know what I'm saying? Always look to God, because no situation is permanent. And if you continue to look for the positivity, you will see it. I think that sometimes when things are so bad that, people focus on the bad, and that's why you can't get out of it. But in every situation, I think that there is something good in the situation, even if it's the fact that it's not as bad as it could have been, because someone else is always going through something worse than what you're going through.
That's so true. That's so true. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, because once again, we have stuck with the mission of Our Wellbeing LLC to educate and empower people with information on well-being healing. I just want to share with everybody also about some of the few upcoming events that we are having in the month of February and also the month of March. Let me bring that up on the screen here. We have our first weekend wellness retreat that we're going to have. It's going to be here in, wrong slide. Going to be here in Williamsburg on Saturday, February 17th. There's a registration link on our website, and come out, and you're going to actually meet two of our practitioners here, two of our Uncut Crew. Tiffany and Erica will be there. We're going to have emotional well-being activities, physical well-being activities, and spiritual well-being. That spiritual well-being, we're looking at our sound healing with Erica, which is her specialty. And you can sign up on Eventbrite and get that link from our website, www.ourwellbeing.net. And also on Friday, March 1st, we are having our inaugural Wellness at Work Wellbeing Conference, all-day conference, where you will hear from Kaleema as our guest speaker. You'll again hear from Erica and Tiffany. You'll see a presentation from one of our other strategic partners, Terry Holbert, and we'll have a financial well-being presenter as well, taking you through all the topics of mental health, physical, financial, and spiritual well-being. So with that, I just want to say thank you to all who joined. Again, if you could drop in the chat where you are viewing from, what city and state, you can go to the Our Wellbeing website and send us your email to stay in touch with events like this that we'll send out to you, and any other events. Oh, we do have somebody who has a question. So that is Michelle. Since we have such a small audience, I'm going to allow you to talk, Michelle. So you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning.
Okay,
Welcome.
Good morning. And I'm bringing you greetings from Houston, Texas. And Lalita is my cousin. So I appreciate, I love hearing her speak, because she does have a story. And I think it's important for us to actually understand that so many of our young women, as well as our young men, have been incarcerated. And when they come out, it's not the same for other situations. And so I think she expounded upon that so well. And I always tell her, and I always encourage her to tell her story, because it needs to be heard. And too many of us don't realize that voting, I'm so happy she hit on being on juries, because so many of us make excuses not to be on them, when really we're normally the defendants and not we're not on the other side. So I think it's important for us to not make excuses and be active in the criminal justice system, or I should say injustice system, because it doesn't treat us the same way. And I see it firsthand, because I'm a lawyer, so I see it firsthand. And I always tell people, we have to be the change that we want to see, because they're not going to do it for us.
That's right. That is right. Well, thank you for that comment, and thank you for all the support as a family member that you've given to Lalita, and hopefully that's encouraging others to give support to their family members. You just can't underestimate that support and helping them to get through that and change that mindset of if you go to jail, you on your own, because that's not how I raised you. Because it could very well be them in that situation, and they want that support.
Absolutely. And also the chat is disabled, so we can't put our locations in there. Just
Oh,
FYI.
I'm sorry. That's one thing I got to remember. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
No
And
problem.
Lisa,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And Lisa, Tammy also put in the chat. She said, "Hello, my name is Tammy Johnson, Lalita's sister. I wanted you to know that yes, you can receive your passport if you've had a conviction."
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you. Welcome knowledge and coming from your family. Coming from your family. Anybody else out there who would like to, in our viewing audience, who would like to say anything in the chat or be unmuted? Okay. Well, with that, I just want to thank everybody. Oh, we got one more. Let me see. Tammy. We're going to allow Tammy to talk. There you go, Tammy. Can you unmute yourself? There you go. Thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just wanted to say also, I couldn't text as much on there just for some odd reason. But you can, it depends on how long the conviction was. If you're on probation, they're not going to give you the passport. But you can get it. It depends on whether you're on probation or not, how long the conviction is. And that's basically what was told to me.
Okay. Do you have to go through an attorney to get that done, or can you just go through straight to the State Department?
From my understanding, I think it's all done at the post office. So they look at those things.
Okay.
Because they give you a questionnaire, if I'm not mistaken. And if
Mhm.
you said you had a conviction, they look at all of that.
Wonderful. So we would encourage anybody who needs to get their passport and has a conviction or knows of somebody to make sure that you seek out that, because we all should have our passports regardless. We need our passports because if you don't have a passport, you are imprisoning yourself in this country. You will not be able to get anywhere. And when the time for us to leave, we need to have our passports.
And can I also add that if you have a conviction that's, depending on the type of conviction, some convictions can be expunged. And I think sometimes we don't think about that, because if you're trying to get some type of employment, sometimes it keeps coming up. And sometimes if you've been just arrested and never convicted, that arrest still comes up. So sometimes you can get those things expunged so that you don't have to keep reliving that trauma, whatever that circumstances was during, if you're trying to look for, to be gainfully employed.
That's an excellent point, Michelle, because I know here in Virginia, you can't expunge misdemeanors.
Right.
They stay on your record, which is crazy to me, because you can expunge other stuff, but you can't expunge a misdemeanor. And maybe that's something for some of our legislators that look like us to be able to take, because it affects us more often.
Exactly.
So,
that's true.
So if anybody is listening out there in the state of Virginia or sees this, we got some work to do, because a lot of times that's a barrier in itself. Like you say, you could have a disorderly conduct in school because you drank too much or something, and then you plea out because you don't want to go to jail, and they're saying, okay, this is better, but then you've just done yourself some harm because that misdemeanor for drinking too much is on your record.
Right. And sometimes they have deferred adjudication, and that may not always be the best, because it just depends on the circumstance. But I always tell people we invest in a lot of different things. We invest in the way we look. We invest in where we live sometimes, but we don't always invest in knowing what's good for us, meaning down the line, because these things can come back up and keep coming back up. And we don't realize, well, why am I not getting a job? Or why are they not calling me back? It's because they're seeing that. And then sometimes, with pre-TSA and things like that, if you have a conviction or you have been arrested or things like that, they may deny you, because even though it may not come up anymore, people can still see it, especially on the legal side. So just keep that in mind. So there's a lot of different things that we may not know that's playing in the background, but it's still playing.
That is so true. That is
And,
so
and
true.
excuse me, Michelle, can I ask you a question also? Can we get our
Yes.
own background? Can we actually apply and get our own background check?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should know what's out there because we think about, we always talk about our credit, but we need to also know what's coming up, that may be popping up that, like you said, someone said about college, you got drunk and then you didn't realize certain things happen and that's still coming up. So I would advise everybody. I mean, sometimes when I'm working with clients, I got to do a background check. And I'll never forget, I think I was telling Lalita this. I'm at a client and I do a lot of probate work. So that means that the young Black man who I was representing, his mother had passed away, and we're doing, you cannot be a felon and serve as an executor over an estate. So I had asked him all the questions, there's no impediments to keep, you from serving. And do you know that judge who did not look like us, I called them wonderful, she said, she asked the question again. And I said, didn't I just ask that question? But if he wasn't Black, would you have asked that question again? I just said, he is not, there's no impediments for him to serve. And it made me so angry because she literally questioned him and said, so you're not convicted of a felony? Like this man, and I was through. I was disgusted because I just asked him that question, but you felt the need. And he said, no, ma'am, my mom would have gotten me for doing anything outside of the law or something he said. And I called him and I said, I'm so sorry that happened to you because it should not have happened.
Right.
And this was 2023. So I tell people always say, well, Michelle, it's changed. I see every day in courtrooms where I go, and I experience, the attorneys, they don't assume I'm an attorney. They assume that I'm the paralegal or I'm a defendant or something. And my friends, we all talk about it. We still experience that in 2020. Well, now we're in 2024, but in 2023, we're still experiencing things that at this point we really should not. But it's not a lot of us that are lawyers that are, I think it's like 2% of Black women that are lawyers. I mean, and that's still sad. But that's where we find ourselves in this day and age. So right. I just say we have to be more active in what we're doing and more intentional because they're intentional.
That's true. That's true. I have unmuted everybody. So if you want to join in and have a comment or just say where you're viewing from, city or state, since the chat is disabled, feel free to do that now. This has been wonderful. This has been all I imagine. I think all of us have imagined on this panel that it would be, and what an appropriate day. And I just want to give thanks to our missing Uncut crew member, Richard Shepherdson-Turner, for letting me know about Lalita. I know Richard was on earlier, but this was definitely a great way to spend today on this appropriate observation day of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So with that, again, please check out our website, www.ourwellbeing.net. You will also see on our Strategic Partners Network page information about Tiffany, Erica, and Kaleema. And we ask you to join us the next time that we do our webinar and any events that are coming up. So with that, you all have a blessed day. Stay safe wherever you are within this country with the weather that's coming. And until next time, we'll see you. Peace.